Right, morning. Pleasure to be here. My name is Retana from INCAE Business School in Costa Rica. And I'm going to demo you a couple of things I'm trying to do to make IT a more tangible things for my students, in particular a couple of labs. And one I'm sure you might be looking forward to is a demo of Watson and being taught in class in less than an 80-minute session. So back home, we have two digital transformation courses. We call them digital transformation mainly for marketing purposes because students were scared about MIS or IT. Digital transformation sound cooler. These are two 18-session courses. And we base our framework on something published in the leading digital book that says that digital masters need to have both leadership and digital capabilities. Leadership have to do with strategy, implementation, organizational changes, the ability to drive the organization forth in some direction. And in this course, we teach stuff about IT strategy, ERP implementations, CRMs, BIs, mainly at the org level, not at the data analytics level. Some SQL to understand what an ERP is. And I've taken control of the second course that dwells into the more digital aspect, and I start going into very techie stuff. So I take high risk. I go into hardware infrastructure, software development, IT security, cloud, DevOps, very cutting edge things that you might think are hard to teach. Now, if I believe this is important, it's always comforting because as I was preparing for this workshop, I learned that some other authors, prominent authors out there, are thinking in the same way, in the sense that firms should start developing software and thinking about software or creating technology, not just adopting and using technology, but actually creating new technology. And I like to go with this flow. And I think the challenge is very important because if you take a class, these are not really IT guys to which these concepts will come out easily, because we got the management background guys, the traditional, we got the engineers from various fields, but not necessarily IS engineers. Then we got these weird specimens. Oh, we always have to need a lawyer in the class. But we have these weird specimens who studied biology, agronomy, architects. I even have a dentist in my class. How do I teach a dentist to develop software or how IT architecture works? And that's the challenge. And this is where my labs have kicked in. Because students start off with fear about IT. It's natural to fear whatever you don't know. So I need to somehow remove this fear of getting into IT. And I need to create this aha moment like, hey, professor, I didn't know this was so simple. Suddenly, this is something I'm actually eager to learn about. I can Google stuff and understand what I'm reading off Google. I can talk with my CIO and understand what the heck the CIO is talking to me about. So I try to drive this learning process through the going from fear to aha to self-paced learning through the labs. And I want to briefly tell you about three of the labs I've developed. First one, by now students have learned about IT architectures. I have recorded YouTube videos. There's an INCAE Digital Transformation YouTube channel you can look up out there. And I teach them stuff on application architectures. And I tell them, hey, this is how a website works. And on this web server, you can install WordPress, which is a CMS. And this WordPress can be complemented with plugins such as WooCommerce. So you can actually build your own e-commerce website. And students are amazed that in 80 minutes, they launch an e-commerce website from their laptops. Just to share with you some of the outcomes, they can start selling climbing gear. This was a Climbing for All store. They start selling supercars. Some Real Madrid fans are selling souvenirs of Real Madrid. And I mean, things that students consider important, they sell whatever they want to sell, including spirits and so forth. So that's the first lab. They understand now that a website is not a magical black box. It's something you can actually build. Another labs I do is when we talk about cloud, most of our students have Google Drive and Dropbox as cloud, and that's it. I need to tell them that there's way much more to the cloud than this. And I take them to AWS mainly because of it being the prominent player in the cloud space and the industry space in particular. And if you go into Amazon and start looking at all the things available there, this is just a mess. This is mind-boggling to them. But I kind of walk them through this and say, hey, this is not as hard as it seems once you understand, for example, what a server is. And something that I do is I take them into the Amazon marketplace for machine images, and very easily you can actually launch the Amazon EC2 instance with WordPress pre-installed. And they had already learned how WordPress works, so suddenly this is very transparent to them, and launching service in the cloud is not something that is exclusive to the IT department. It's something that anyone can do. And I've actually had notice of my students later using Azure to deploy data analytics services because now they understand what is this thing of running infrastructure out there. And the third lab, the one I want to run my demo on, is, well, traditionally we've been thinking about using computer resources only as coding computers. But what if we could actually train computers to do things, which is the underlying thinking behind cognitive technologies, behind the cognitive paradigm promoted by IBM. And I take them into Bluemix, and Bluemix offers a series of services. And since we've been talking about application architectures, they know that they don't have to own the software itself, they just need to be able to connect to it. And for example, they might have their own banking application that connects to a Watson-based conversation engine that can work. So something I wanted to do is just to show you how easy it is to build these instruments is within the Watson Services library. This is, by the way, completely free. You can actually continue using it for free under a low threshold of usage for free. None of the labs actually involve any licenses. So everything is open source. But in this one, we can actually very quickly create a chatbot. So this is my workspace within Watson Conversation. And I wanted to create a new chatbot that responded to questions about this workshop. So IT teaching workshop concierge. It answers questions about the workshop. So let's do crowdsourcing. What kind of things would you like to ask someone about this workshop? What topics? Please, shoot. How do I get to it from the parking lot? Okay. So let's create, so how this works is we need to be able to capture users' intentions. What is it that the user is trying to do? So the user is trying to ask me about, and I'm going to create an intent called, I'm going to summarize that into travel. And a question, a way we could ask this is, how do I get there, right? What's another way of asking this? Shoot. Really, just shoot. Huh? I'm short on time. Ideas. How do you ask? Provide me directions. I'm lost. What's the nearest? Do I get to the workshop? Anything else? So a hotel might be a different topic, right? It's not directions, it's hotel. I actually have a hotel category thought up out there. Any other one? Which building should we get to? Should I fly to LAX? And note that what I'm giving Watson is 7, 8, 10 examples of ways that humans might ask about these. But of course, there are 10,000 different ways people could ask about travel. And that's where Watson kicks in. We don't have to code this. When I develop a dialogue, so these are intents. I'm going to come back to this. I'm not going to dwell into entities for the limit of time, but I need to create a dialogue that says, well, when people come in, I want this, the welcome event. If welcome, hello, I am here to help you with workshop information. How can I help you? And that's going to be the greeting I'm going to give users. And there's a travel node that is going to be triggered if Watson detects that the user's intent is associated to my travel. So remember, I create an intent called travel, and I'm referring to it again here. And what I want to respond, if the user is asking me anything about travel, I might want to tell him, the most convenient, and I was thinking not so much in the building itself, but actually how to make it to the conference, because that's my main question. Where should I fly to? I was coming all the way from Costa Rica anyways. So I'm telling the user the most convenient way to get to here is to fly to this airport. And I put this as the response. And now I'm actually ready to try and check if Watson can do this. So hopefully Watson starts training about this, or maybe it already did. So another way of asking for this that was different from the ones we wrote before. Where is the workshop? Okay, so we need to give a little time for it to. So you see something that pops up here that says Watson is training. It hasn't happened. It's not under our control. In the meantime, let's continue feeding up intents. So very easily, you can actually just brainstorm, as we did now, different questions on different topics. For example, some of the questions could have to do with what is the program, what's the schedule, what time is dinner? That's an important question. What's the agenda? When's the golf? I had some other examples on travel. Where's the beach to? I mean, you can play with this as much as you want. You can also ask about weather. So I already created this CSV file with the categories, and I can simply import them in here. Choose a file. This is in the desktop, right? Somewhere. Intents. So if you look at this, I just gave insights to my Watson on how to respond to questions. See, now it's training. It started on its own. Will our participants stay? Are there any special rates at some hotel? Are questions related to a hotel? And I can bring this into the dialog and simply create new triggers associated with, for example, in this case, I'm going to call this node hotel. And if it recognizes the intention of asking about hotel topics, tell this guy that the hotel is the Hyatt, where I assume most of us are staying. I paste that here. I'm going to create another node called weather. And something cool is that this can actually be extended not just to respond text, but to actually take actions. There's a very nice demo in there where this is connected to an automated car, for example. And think about now you're suddenly coding something that looks very much like Siri or Google Now. You're telling the computer what you want to do. These are JSON scripts behind it. Let's see, I got weather, hotel. There was one more about the program I wanted to have. One last one. Doesn't the what, sorry? The novelty of doing this, at some point that I can do this, so they start questioning. Oh, so something relevant about them. That's an excellent question. Thank you very much. Part of the exciting things about this is that they realized that this is a service. In fact, I had a backup slide somewhere here. Once they realized that Watson is nothing more than a service that you can embed to your applications, then you're not constrained to just thinking about what can I use a chatbot for. And this is just one of the many Watson services. There are others associated with image recognition, pattern recognition, a whole bunch of fancy stuff. And once you realize that they're just right there at your fingertips, and you can embed that into any other application, then students really start thinking about how can they use this kind of stuff. So let's start asking, what do you want to know about the workshop? Who will be presenting? And I'm hoping this thing already trained itself. There are very interesting faculty who are coming to share their knowledge of the workshop. Please go to the following webpage. And this might or might not be one of the questions we actually plugged into Watson. Give me some other way of asking about the program, maybe. Please. So this is, we haven't trained it on this. So several things. I can actually train them on the spot. I can tell it, well, if someone asks about analytics, this is another way that people could ask about the agenda. So Watson's now training, and it's including this new way of asking for the agenda and tying it to the agenda intent. What else could we ask? We could ask, do I need to bring a jacket to the event? And said, well, this is associated to weather, but you know, as people say, it's always sunny in California. So how am I doing on time? Sorry? Ask one. Nice. So once again, we built this on a snap. It just shows how easy it is to build applications. And once you take it along and you put it together with the other labs, suddenly students realize once again that IT is not a black box full of dark magic. It's something that can be done. And I mainly got motivated to start getting into this more practical way of introducing IT, because several industry people were telling me, okay, you're doing great at teaching your students how to adopt technologies. But if you really want to thrive, you need to be able to create these technologies. Entrepreneurs are eager to create new technologies. And in fact, sometimes I finished this lab and I told them how to launch web servers, how to deploy cloud servers, how to train Watson. Professor, you didn't teach me how to build a mobile app. Like, well, there's only so much we can do in a core MBA course. And I think that this was actually a risky take on a core MBA, because so I actually had to teach this to 70 students who kind of liked IT, and some of them who they studied biology because they hate IT. They want to do outdoors. So how do you convince these people that this is important? And ratings seems to agree with that, the fact that if we're able to debunk the myth that IT is hard and throw down these barriers, students are really eager to then start Googling up and exploring on their own. And they're going to come even post-graduation tell, hey, professor, look at the new stuff I created. I have a new app, for example. And these are things that they might not have been willing to engage in had they not been exposed to IT, I believe, in this particular fashion. If you need more resources on this, of course, the website has the slides. There's plenty of tutorials on doing this. In fact, developing a demo in English was insanely easy. I have the challenge of teaching this stuff in both Spanish and English, and that's a little fun. Now, if you have any feedback or suggestions on how to use, I'd love to hear from you. Let's keep on going with the conversation, please. And also, I'm not sure if you have any questions right now.
So Bluemix is free for everyone?
So Bluemix, it offers you a free trial for 30 days to use a bunch of stuff. But even after the first 30-day free trial, there's a free tier, a level of usage you can continue using. So it's even better than Amazon. That Amazon gives you a free tier, but only for a year. After that, you start paying. There's a low threshold of usage. It's a very nice freemium model with them. And I don't earn any commission on Amazon or Bluemix or anything. I just discover cool tools that my students can use for free and try to bring them to the classroom. All right. Sunil. Honestly not. So my relationship with Watson starts with, there's a firm called Cognitiva that has the exclusive right to commercialize Watson throughout the Latin American region. And they've touched the doors at INCAE at my school saying, hey, can you help us figure this one out? You guys know a lot about our region. And that's to some extent where the relationship starts. But beyond that, they're actually looking forward to learning from me on how can I bring Watson to the classroom because they have no idea how to do it. Vijay. Excellent question. So something I tell them is that the labs do not have the goal of them being able to replicate the labs. So when I deploy the web server, I'm telling them in the exams or for grading purposes, you're not expected to be able to replicate exactly what we did in the lab. So the lab are much more of demonstration in nature than of evaluation. And the key thing is just to cross that initial threshold of hey, IT is not something to be scared about. It's something you can get into. And now you can actually go talk and work with engineers, with CIOs, and work together because you have a common language you didn't have before. So just by developing this common language and to enable a common understanding between the technical guys and the business guys, that's already a gold for me.
Because every time they have to go to Watson to do anything new, they keep having to go into Watson.
Right, and that's the biggest criticism of it, because one thing it doesn't let you do is there's two the parameters. It just builds the model. You can make some adjustments on the different variables, but you don't get the control or experimentation. You can't, for example, do a cross validation or hold out sample. You can't do any of those things. Just build something for you. But for some people, they really get taken by this. They've never seen anything like this. Either need no infrastructure and no knowledge. And risk of making big mistakes.
Yeah, so one of the key takeaways Watson has a wide array of services, but one of the key takeaways from the course is this idea of microservices available through APIs. So they start thinking about IT in a more ecosystem fashion rather than a standalone applications. And the idea that they can have one component and feed from other microservices, something that they take away from all these exercises too. So they're